I was convinced I knew my wife until I found a bar napkin tucked inside her purse with another man's number on it. What began as a whisper of suspicion exploded into a nightmare of lies that reached back decades. When I finally discovered who she really was, it upended everything I thought I knew about my life. My name is William Brewster. I'm 43 years old. And until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. Solid job as a financial analyst at Riverside Regional Bank. Beautiful wife, 13-year-old son who still thought I hung the moon, and a house in the suburbs that we'd been paying down for 8 years. The American dream, right? Wrong. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday evening in March. Renee walked through our front door at 9:47 p.m., her heels striking the hardwood louder than usual. She worked as a public relations specialist at Mercy General Hospital, so late nights weren't rare, but there was something off about this night. "Sorry I'm late," Renee called, dropping her purse by the entry without meeting my gaze. Her hair was slightly mussed, not the tired looseness of a long day, but like someone's fingers had hurried through it. Crisis management meeting ran way over. I was in the living room going over loan portfolios from work, but I looked up when she spoke. "Everything okay at the hospital?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Just the usual drama," she said, heading straight for the kitchen. "Board members getting their knickers in a twist over the new cardiac wing budget." The phrase sounded practiced, like she had rehearsed it in the car. Renee had handled hospital PR for 7 years, and I'd never heard her say "knickers in a twist" before. It was a tiny detail, but it stuck with me. Michael was upstairs doing homework. I could hear his music faintly through the ceiling. At 13 he was getting more independent, but he still loved our evening talks about school and sports. Tonight, though, Renee seemed intent on avoiding family interaction. When Michael finished his math, I told her as she poured a glass of wine that he wanted to show her his science project proposal. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" she asked without turning. "I'm exhausted." That was another strike. Renee never postponed time with Michael. Even on her worst days she'd at least peek in to say good night. But tonight she seemed distracted, almost irritated at the mention of our son. I watched her move through the kitchen and noticed a different perfume, not her usual light floral she'd worn for years, but something heavier, muskier, not what you'd wear to a hospital meeting. "New perfume?" I asked, trying to sound offhand rather than suspicious. She paused for a fraction of a second before replying. "Jessica gave me a sample. Said I should try something different." Jessica was Renee's closest work friend, a single woman in her 30s with a bit of a wild streak. They'd been spending more time together lately, girls' nights out that seemed to be happening more often. "Smells nice," I said, though honestly it didn't suit her at all. Renee finished her wine quickly and announced she was going to shower and go to bed. "Don't wait up." As her footsteps climbed the stairs and the bathroom door closed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the woman who had just walked into our house felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. The next morning brought more questions. I woke at 6:15, as always, but Renee's side of the bed was empty and the shower was running. She was up a full hour earlier than normal. "You're up early," I called through the bathroom door. "Early meeting today," came her muffled reply. "Some donors want to discuss the fundraising campaign." Another perfectly reasonable explanation that nevertheless felt off. Years at the bank taught me to trust my instincts when details don't line up, and my gut told me something wasn't right. After Renee left for work, I helped Michael get ready for school. He was in 8th grade now, beginning to show the usual teenage shifts, but he still liked our morning conversations. On the drive to Jefferson Middle School he surprised me. "Dad, is everything okay with Mom?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean, buddy?" I said. "She seems different lately," he replied, staring out the window. "Like distracted or something. And she's been going out with her friends a lot more. Kids see everything, even when adults think they're being discreet." "Adults go through phases sometimes," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. "Your mom's just been busy with work." "Okay," Michael replied, unconvinced. After dropping him off, I sat in my car for a few minutes thinking about Renee's behavior, the late nights, the new perfume, the hush of phone calls. Any single incident could be explained, but together they painted a pattern that tightened my chest. At work I was unfocused during meetings, my mind kept drifting home. Around 11 o'clock I did something I had never done before. I called the hospital to see if I could take Renee to lunch. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brewster," said the receptionist in the PR department. "Renee called in sick today." "Didn't she tell you?" My blood went cold. "Oh, must have forgotten," I managed. I hung up and stared at the computer, loan applications blurring into the background. Renee had left the house that morning in work clothes with her briefcase, talking about an early meeting, but she'd called in sick. My logical side tried to invent benign reasons. Maybe she felt worse after leaving, maybe a doctor's appointment had come up, but the analyst in me knows that when the numbers don't line up, something is wrong. During lunch I drove home instead of going to the cafeteria. Renee's car wasn't in the driveway, which meant she was somewhere she had felt the need to lie about. I parked across the street and felt like a stranger in my own neighborhood. Yesterday I had been the trusting husband who took his wife's word at face value. Today I was someone checking up on his spouse. As I drove back to the bank I made a choice that would change everything. I was going to pay much closer attention, not to set a trap but because I needed to understand what was happening to my family. The truth, whatever it was, couldn't be worse than the growing sense that the woman I'd married 14 years ago was becoming someone I didn't recognize. That evening I decided to test Renee's story. When she walked through the door at 7:30 I waited in the kitchen, wearing a concerned expression I didn't have to fake. "How are you feeling?" I asked, stepping over to feel her forehead. "The hospital said you called in sick." For a heartbeat her eyes widened, then she covered my hand with hers. "I started feeling awful after I left this morning," she said. "Decided to see Dr. Martinez instead of spreading whatever bug I picked up." "Dr. Martinez?" I repeated, "Our family physician." "Did he say what it was?" "Probably just stress," she answered, moving toward the refrigerator. "He suggested I take it easy for a few days." I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Martinez's office. The receptionist confirmed what I already suspected. Renee hadn't been there today. When I hung up she stared at me with an expression I'd never seen. Cold, calculating. "You called my doctor?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. "I was worried about you," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "But apparently, you weren't there either." William Brewster. "I don't appreciate being treated like a criminal in my own home," she snapped. The formal use of my full name was a warning. Renee only spoke like that when bracing for a fight. "Then stop acting like one," I shot back. "Where were you today, Renee? And don't give me another story. I'm done pretending I believe them." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to know where I was?" I was with Jessica and her friends at that new wine bar downtown. We were talking about how suffocating marriage can be, how some women feel trapped by husbands who think they own them. Jessica dared me to stand up more. I said, I let you control everything, where I go, who I see, what I do. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Control you? Renee, asking where you were when you lied about being sick isn't controlling. It's basic honesty between married people. She stepped closer. Or is it because you can't stand that I might have a life outside this house? Outside of you and Michael? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. What I can't stand is being lied to by my wife. What I can't stand is not knowing who I'm married to. Michael appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Why are you guys yelling? Renee immediately shifted into mother mode. We're not yelling, honey, just having a discussion, she said, but Michael wasn't buying it. At 13 he was old enough to recognize real conflict. Dad, he said, looking at me with confusion and worry. Everything's fine, son, I told him, though we both knew it wasn't true. Why don't you go finish your homework? After Michael left, Renee and I stood in the kitchen, staring at each other across a distance that felt much wider than the few feet of tile between us. This isn't over, she said quietly. No, I agreed. It's not. The next morning I did something I had never done in 14 years of marriage. I checked our bank statements without telling Renee. What I found made my hand tremble: regular cash withdrawals of $500, sometimes $800, repeated over 3 months. Money taken from our joint savings account, the one we'd been building for Michael's college fund. Each withdrawal happened on days when Renee said she was working late or out with friends. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. I printed the statements and spread them across my desk at the bank. Janet noticed my expression. You look like someone who just discovered embezzlement, she joked. Something like that, I muttered. The total was staggering, $12,000 over 3 months. Money that should have been securing our son's future was disappearing into whatever secret life my wife was living. I called Michael's school and arranged to pick him up early. On the drive home I asked the question that had been nagging me. Son, has your mom mentioned anyone new lately? Any friends I haven't met? Michael hesitated. There's this guy named Trevor who called the house last week. Mom talked to him for like an hour. When I asked who he was, she said it was work stuff. Trevor, the name hit me like ice water. Did she seem upset after the call? No, Michael said slowly. She seemed happy. Really happy. Like happier than she's been in a while. That night I confronted Renee with the bank statements. She was in our bedroom getting ready for another girls' night with Jessica. Explain these, I said, dropping the papers on the dresser. Renee glanced at them and, for the first time in this whole nightmare, her face looked genuinely tired. No surprise, no shock, just resignation. I can explain, she said. I'm listening, I replied, fighting to keep my voice level. It's not what you think. What I think, I said, is that you've stolen $12,000 from our son's college fund to finance whatever you've been doing during your fake sick days and imaginary work emergencies. Renee sat down on the edge of the bed. His name is Trevor Mills, she said quietly. We used to be together before I met you. He's been having financial problems and I've been helping him out. The admission landed like a punch, but I forced myself to stay focused. Helping him out with our money without telling your husband, it's complicated, William. No, I said. It's theft. And whatever relationship you had with Trevor, it clearly isn't over. Renee looked up at me, and for a moment I saw the woman I had fallen in love with, then the mask slipped back into place. "You're right," she said. "It's not over. Maybe it never really ended." After Renee's admission, I called my old college roommate, Reed Parker, who worked as a private investigator. We met at a downtown diner the next morning. "William, I wish you called me sooner," Reed said. "I've been watching this situation develop for months." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Trevor Mills isn't just some ex-boyfriend. He's Renee's first husband, common law, and they have a son together." My coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. "That's impossible," I said. Renee had told me her first child died during birth. Reed lowered his voice. "The death certificate was forged," he said quietly. "The boy's name is Asher. He's 17 years old." My mind reeled. "How long have you known?" I asked. "About 6 months," Reed replied. "I saw them together at a restaurant. The kid looks exactly like her." Reed leaned forward. "I should have told you immediately." 17 years of lies," I whispered. "The money she's been taking, it's child support. Asher wants to go to college." I thought about Michael's depleted college fund. "I need proof," I said. "Everything you can find." "There's more," Reed continued. "Renee's been telling Trevor that you're abusive, that she's afraid of you." The accusation was absurd. Anyone who knows me would never believe it. But Trevor believes it. So does Asher. They believe they're rescuing her. That afternoon I caught Renee packing a suitcase. She glanced up with defiance as I stepped into our bedroom. "I'm staying with Jessica for a few days," she declared. "Actually," I said, shutting the door behind me. "You're going to tell me about Asher." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about. Your 17-year-old son with Trevor Mills, the child you told me died at birth." Renee sank onto the bed, her hands trembling. "How did you find out?" she whispered. "What matters is that you've built our entire marriage on a lie." She looked at me, tears welling. "I was going to tell you, after you'd stolen every penny for the child you abandoned." "I didn't abandon him," Renee snapped. "I made a choice to give him a better life, and you chose to lie to me about it for 14 years. Reed's investigation exposed the full scale of Renee's deception. We met in his office 2 days later. The insurance fraud was the most damaging revelation. Reed showed me the documents. She collected $50,000 on a falsified death certificate, then spent that money on your wedding." I stared at the papers. Our whole relationship had been bankrolled by fraud. It got worse. She was still legally married to Trevor. She never divorced him. Technically, your marriage could be considered bigamy. The legal implications hit me hard. That meant Michael might not be your biological son. I ran a DNA test, and the result destroyed my assumptions. That evening I sat Michael down for the hardest conversation of my life. "Dad, you look serious," Michael said, taking a seat across from me. "Son, I need to tell you some things about your mother and me that are going to be hard to understand." I carefully explained that Renee had lied, that she had another son Michael had never met, and that she might be leaving. "Does this mean you're getting divorced?" Michael asked. "Our family is going to look different for a while," I answered, "but you'll always be my son and I'll always take care of you." He was quiet. "Is this why she's been acting weird?" "Probably," I said. Are you going to be okay, Dad? His maturity tightened my chest. We're both going to be okay, buddy. I promise. 2 days later, Reed called with news that changed everything. The police wanted to talk to me about the insurance fraud. Renee was in custody. Relief and sorrow crashed together, relief that the lies might end, sorrow that Michael would learn his mother was a criminal. What happens now? I asked. Now you focus on rebuilding your life, Reed said. You and Michael, you're stronger than you know. As I hung up, I realized he was right. I was stronger than I had believed, strong enough to face the truth, protect my son, and begin again. The woman I thought I'd married never existed. But the man I became while fighting for my family's future was real, and he was only beginning. 3 weeks after Renee's arrest, Reed arrived at my house with news that shattered the rest of my assumptions. William, you need to sit down for this, he said. Michael was at school, which was fortunate for what I was about to hear. I got the DNA results 3 weeks ago, Reed said, pulling a manila envelope from his coat. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. Michael isn't your biological son. He's Trevor's. I kept hoping he was wrong, so I ran the test 3 times. I stared at Reed, unable to absorb what he was saying. Renee and I had been together when she got pregnant. Apparently she had been with both of you. The timelines overlapped perfectly. Reed set the documents on my coffee table. William, I'm sorry. I know how much that boy means to you. Michael wasn't just my son, he was my entire world. The thought of losing him was unbearable. I asked quietly, does this change anything legally? Reed told me that because my name was on the birth certificate and I've been his father for 13 years, I retained parental rights. But if Trevor finds out and decides to contest custody, he won't find out, I interrupted firmly. Not from me, not from you, not from anyone. William, think carefully, Reed warned. Keeping this secret is exactly what I'm going to help you do. I answered without hesitation, Michael is my son in every way that matters. No DNA test will change that. That afternoon I picked Michael up from school as usual. He climbed into the car with the usual teenage chatter about a science project and complaints about his math teacher. Dad, you're quiet today, he observed on the drive home. Just thinking about work stuff, I lied, the irony wasn't lost on me. I was becoming as skilled at deception as Renee had been. Are you still upset about Mom? Michael asked innocently, and the question cut deep. I'm upset about the situation, not about your mom specifically, I said. Do you think she'll come back when this is all over? I pulled into the driveway and looked at him. Michael, your mother made some serious mistakes. She's going to have to face the consequences of those choices. He said quietly, but she's still my mom. Yes, I agreed. She'll always be your mom, and I'll always be your dad. Nothing's going to change that. After dinner I sat in my study staring at the DNA results. Reed had been meticulous, there was no doubt about paternity. But as I read the scientific proof that Michael wasn't my biological child, a new realization rose up: I didn't care. I'd been there for his first steps, first words, his first day of school. I taught him to ride a bike, helped with homework, and held him when he was sick. Trevor Mills might have supplied DNA, but I had provided everything else. The next morning I made a decision that would have seemed impossible a month earlier. I called a lawyer to start adoption proceedings. If biology didn't make him mine, the court could. Given that you're listed as the father on the birth certificate and have been raising him for 13 years, this should be straightforward, the lawyer explained. especially with the mother's legal troubles. What about the biological father? I asked. Since he's never been involved and has no legal standing, it shouldn't be an issue, though we must notify him as part of the process. Absolutely not, I said. Process. Absolutely not, I said. There has to be another way. The lawyer grew uneasy. Mr. Brewster, I understand your concerns, but legally, find another way, I insisted. That man is not going to disrupt my son's life any more than it already has been. Leaving the lawyer's office, I realized I was ready to fight anyone, even the legal system, to protect Michael. Genetics determine DNA, but love and commitment determine family. Michael was my family, whatever a test said. Renee's trial was set for 6 weeks out, but she was released on bail. I wasn't surprised when she turned up at my door on a Tuesday evening. I was prepared. I want to see Michael, she said without preamble. That's not going to happen, I replied, standing firm in the doorway. He's my son, William. You can't keep him from me. The irony stung, given what I now knew about paternity. Her demand was absurd. You lost the right to make demands when you built our marriage on fraud, I answered. I made mistakes, she said, but that doesn't change the fact I'm his mother. It doesn't change that she's his mother, I agreed. But it changes everything else. I stepped out and closed the door behind me. Michael doesn't need to see you right now, he's been through enough. You're poisoning him against me, Renee accused. I haven't said a word against you to Michael. I didn't have to, your actions spoke louder than anything I could say. Her face hardened. You think you're so righteous, don't you? Well, let me tell you something about your precious son that might change your perspective. My blood ran cold. Somehow she'd found out about the DNA results. Michael isn't yours, she continued, watching me for a reaction. He's Trevor's. You've been raising another man's child for 13 years. I know, I said simply. Her admission surprised her more than me. You know, I've known for weeks and it doesn't change anything, I said. How can you say that? He's not your blood. He's my son in every way that matters, I countered. Blood doesn't make a family, Renee. Love and commitment do, things you seem not to understand. Renee stared as if seeing me anew. You're going to keep him, aren't you? Even knowing the truth? There is no keeping him, he's already mine. Has been since the day he was born. She pleaded, Trevor has rights. When he finds out, he won't find out, I cut in. You're not going to tell him. If you do, I'll make sure every detail of your insurance fraud goes national. Asher will read about his mother in the papers. It was a bluff, but Renee didn't know that, her face paling proved it. You wouldn't do that to Asher. Try me, I said. You want to play games with my family? I'll play harder than you can imagine. She stepped back, shaken. I never meant for things to get this complicated, she whispered, but they did. Now you have to live with the consequences. I moved toward the door. Stay away from Michael, I said. Renee, if you love him at all, let him heal from what you've put him through. And if you don't stay away, I turned back to face her, you'll find out how far I'm willing to go to protect my son. After she left, I found Michael at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up when I entered. Was that Mom? He asked. Yes. What did she want? I told her it wasn't a good time, I said. Michael nodded slowly. Thanks, Dad. I'm not ready to see her yet. Take all the time you need, buddy. There's no rush. Watching him return to his homework, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in months. The truth about his paternity hadn't altered how I felt. If anything, it steeled me to be the father he deserved. Biology may have linked him to Trevor Mills, but 13 years of love had bound him to me, and that connection mattered more than any DNA test. 6 months after Renee's arrest, the legal process concluded. She pled guilty to insurance fraud and received 3 years probation with community service. More importantly to me, the adoption paperwork for Michael was approved without contest. "Congratulations, Mr. Brewster," the judge said, signing the final documents. "Michael is now legally your adopted son." I looked at Michael beside me in his best suit. At 14, he grasped the gravity of the moment more than most kids his age. "Does this mean Mom can't take me away?" he asked quietly. "No one can take you away from me now, buddy. We're officially family." The irony wasn't lost on me. DNA had tried to separate us and the law had bound us back together. Sometimes the system works. Reed was waiting outside the courthouse. "How does it feel to be officially a father?" he asked, shaking my hand. "The same as before," I said. Nothing really changed but the paperwork. Over 6 months, Michael and I had grown closer. Freed from Renee's drama, we made new routines and traditions. He started calling me Dad more often because he wanted to, not because he had to. Asher had reached out twice wanting to meet his half-brother. I declined both times, not out of spite but because Michael wasn't ready. Maybe one day they'd meet, but only on Michael's terms. "What about the college fund?" he asked driving home. I'd managed to recover most of the stolen money through Renee's restitution payments. "It's all there, plus interest. You'll be able to go to any college you want." "What if I want to stay close to home?" he asked. "Then you stay close to home. Your choice, son." That evening we celebrated with pizza and a movie, just the two of us. Simple, peaceful, ordinary, what our lives hadn't been for months. During the credits, Michael said, "Dad, I'm glad you found out the truth about everything, even though it was hard." "Why's that?" I asked. "Because now I know you really want me here, not because you have to, but because you choose to." His words struck harder than any DNA result. This boy, my son, understood something that had taken me months. Family isn't defined by genetics, it's defined by choice, commitment, and love. "I'll always choose you, Michael, every single day." "I know, Dad. That's what makes you my real father," he said. As I tucked him in that night, I realized something profound. Renee's lies had nearly destroyed us, but they'd also made us certain about what mattered. Michael was my son, not because of biology but because biology didn't matter. We had chosen each other, fought for each other, and built something DNA couldn't undo. The woman who tried to tear us apart had made us unbreakable. 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of our renovated house watching Michael help his friend with homework at the dining table. We had gutted and rebuilt our living space, removing traces of Renee's deception and creating something purely ours. The settlement from the insurance company paid for renovations and restored Michael's college fund. More importantly, it gave us a fresh start. "Dad, can Jake stay for dinner?" Michael called. "Of course," I replied. "I'm making your favorite anyway." Cooking had become one of my unexpected talents over the past year. Michael and I turned meal prep into quality time instead of a chore. My phone buzzed with a text from Reed. Renee completed her community service and moved to another state to be closer to Asher. "Thought you should know." I deleted the message without replying. Renee's chapter in our lives was closed and I had no interest in reopening it. "Mr. Brewster," Jake said when I served snacks. "Michael's lucky to have a dad like you." "I'm the lucky one," I replied, meaning it. Later, after Jake left, Michael and I sat on the back porch talking about his plans for high school. He wanted to join debate and maybe try out for baseball. "You know what's funny?" Michael asked, looking up at the stars. "What's that?" I said. "I used to worry I wasn't good enough to be your son. Now I know you weren't sure you were good enough to be my dad." His insight astonished me. "How do you figure?" "The way you fought for me, like you had to prove you deserved to keep me." "Maybe I'd have to prove it to myself if not to anyone else," I said. We sat in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. "Dad, thank you," Michael said eventually. "For what?" "For choosing me, even when you found out about, the DNA stuff." I had never told him the paternity results, but he had sensed something. "Kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for," I said. "Michael, listen to me carefully," I added, turning to face him. "You are my son, not because of genetics or legal papers, but because we chose each other. That's what real family is. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son." As we went inside for the night, I reflected on how much our lives had changed. The lies and betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had instead revealed what truly mattered: trust, commitment, and unconditional love. Those were the foundations of real family. Biology was just genetics. What Michael and I had built together was stronger than that. We'd survived Renee's deception and come out better for it. We were no longer a family held together by assumptions and convenience. We were a family forged by choice and strengthened by adversity. And that was worth more than any DNA test could ever measure.